I'm going to hit record. Say, we're going to hear a disembodied voice say, recording in progress. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So this is the information session about Rheum to Thrive. And so I just started doing these last time. I've done this program a few times, but I realized that I was just not giving people enough opportunities to kind of ask questions and for me to kind of explain everything, because I'm trying to do a lot of things with this program, which I'm aware of. So it's very comprehensive, but it can be confusing. So if you have any questions as I go along, I know sometimes speakers don't like people to put questions in the chat. I do like questions in the chat. So just because it's kind of makes me know that you're listening and have questions. So, and then if you want to say anything, if I ask, like raise your hand, you can raise your hand. So, so you're in the right place, first of all. So if you're interested in a Rheum to Thrive for any reason, you're in the right place. Also if you're kind of, and this picture's a little bit too off, it's very dramatic, but if you have a rheumatic disease like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and you're maybe confused or overwhelmed, not sure how to manage and cope, or feel kind of like I'm on my own here, like how am I supposed to figure this all out? That is the right place. If you're like, I know everything, and you just are like, I want some free entertainment for an hour, that's also okay. But so that what I'm going to give you is a quick introduction to me and how and why I created the program and some details about it. And again, kind of anticipating maybe some of your questions, and then I'll leave it for open-ended questions and answers. So, so I am Cheryl Crow, not the singer, and I'm the arthritis Cheryl Crow. And I've had rheumatoid arthritis for 19 years, since I was 21. So I turned 40 this year. I do have a master's in occupational therapy, which I got I started my program 6 years after my diagnosis. I'm also a mom. I have an 8-year-old, and I founded Arthritis Life and created my self-paced course and Rheum to Thrive programs to kind of fill a gap that I saw in the kind of care and support that patients have been getting. Honestly, a lot of it was brought to my awareness just on social media, seeing how many people over and over again were feeling just so lost. And I'm also, identify myself as a patient educator. That kind of is more clear to most people than occupational therapist, because they're like, what is that? You get people jobs? But anyway, I can explain what that is more. But I created Rheum to Thrive, again, because people were left on their own. I already anticipated this slide, but I want to just very briefly explore, what are some of the common sources of stress people experience while living with inflammatory forms of arthritis, particularly after diagnosis, like kind of the initial adjustment period. There's a lot of unknowns, but I will say, unfortunately, that there's unknowns for a long time. That's kind of a long-term problem, but, not being sure, are you going to respond to medication? How long is it going to take? What else should I do? Social effects, like difficulty explaining it to friends and family. Let me know in the chat or by raising your hand if you've ever had kind of difficulty with people in your life understanding what it is. Like, oh, it's just arthritis. Oh, your leg hurts, instead of actually understanding the systemic nature of it. Of course, there's job and financial worries, kind of maybe lack of clarity from your medical team or lack of access to the medical team, lack of knowledge what all these terms mean. I know some of you have, healthcare experience, but most patients don't, so we're like, what, DMARD, biologic, flare up, spoon, like spoonies, like what is going on, and then I think there's a huge learning curve that took me a long time to realize this is like a skill. Like it's a skill to just be a patient, like a healthcare patient, right? To understand like how the system works and how to get, the most out of your appointments. Yeah, Jan, so you haven't had a local rheumatologist, if you haven't found a local rheumatologist yet, yeah, that's definitely, you're in that initial stage. And there is a shortage of rheumatologists nationally, and particularly pediatric rheumatologists. And so, yeah, they're not always easily accessible to everyone, depending where you live. And then again, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but, conflicting information. It seems like everyone has a different opinion. You should go vegan. No, you should go paleo and like eat a bunch of meat. No, you need to do the autoimmune protocol. You need to do the Mediterranean diet. It's like just diet alone, I find so, overwhelming personally as a patient, in addition to as somebody who's, but in the program, I do try to kind of help you get a framework for understanding why are there so many different approaches that do genuinely work for different people, and the answer is the good and the bad answer is that we're all different, and there's certain things that the scientific community is very clear on, like all the evidence kind of really shows, like things like exercise, as long as you don't overdo it, but things like the diet and nutrition, there's not a one size fit all for that. And then the other, this kind of seems like out of left field, but I always want to acknowledge this, how many people feel traumatized from potentially being not believed or misdiagnosed. If you didn't know, the average time for diagnosis for like an autoimmune disease is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So you're spending that time, at least, and I'll just stop sharing for a second so I can have my face giantly looming. But like, I mean, I had that experience, and so that's why I'm probably really sensitive to it. But it was like, I always say it felt like my body was on fire, and I called the fire department, AKA the doctor, and they were like, "You're not on fire." Like, no, you're not. You're fine. You're like, what? Like something's wrong. And you're telling me, like, I don't know, who do you go to? Like, if the people whose whole job it is to tell you what's wrong and help you don't think there's anything wrong, it's very, very challenging. So I'm going to put that, now I'm going to go back to my slides because I like to go on soapboxes, but so what have I not even mentioned yet? So I've talked about stress, talked about kind of the medical trauma. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I see the chat again. Yeah. Not like when people hear arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, what do they think first usually? Like joint pain.
You are so young. You can't.
Oh, you're so young. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the things that, one of the things that made me the most upset is that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, so not to like give it away, but one of the things that I do explore that I think is important is that those words themselves may mean something different to the person saying them than they do to us. When you've been said, when people say that millions of times to you over and over again, it can feel really invalidating, especially layered on top of like your pre-existing medical trauma from being like told that you're faking or that you're not sick. But I try to remember that for a lot of people, it's literally cognitive dissonance, which is like when two facts conflict with each other, it's just surprising to your brain. Like the first time I met someone, I have to say this is just humbling for me, but when I met someone with multiple sclerosis, I didn't say it out loud, but the first thought in my mind was, you don't look like you have MS. And I was like, what did I think MS looked like? It was like, that's just my thought. It's cognitive dissonance. Like she looked young and healthy. And so even though I understand this and I've, gone on the soapbox, it is kind of a human thing. Like our brain wants to just take shortcuts and make the most simple conclusions. So we explore that. I mean, it's still valid to feel upset when that happens, but it can be helpful to be like, okay, those words can mean different things. They can mean the person's trying to invalidate me, or it can mean that this person's just surprised. Like they literally have never known in their life that somebody could have arthritis who's young. It's just not something that people are exposed to in the culture. Hello, Marion. Sorry, I already started. So I'm on the soapbox already, but welcome. So I've mentioned all these psychological, social, logistical things like figuring out appointments. I haven't even mentioned the physical symptoms, like not even the physical symptoms. Those are also hard. So of course we have pain, different kinds of pain. I personally am not a fan of like a pain scale that's just like 0 to 10. Like to me, doesn't hold any meaning because I have different kinds of pain. I can rate each different kind of pain on a scale of 1 to 10, but then the composite like means nothing because you could be like, a 7 on stiffness and like a 1 on sharp stabbing pain. Anyway, you have to learn what pain is, learn how to manage it. You have to understand fatigue. And I actually didn't know till I went to occupational therapy school that my fatigue was even related to rheumatoid arthritis. Like I thought it was just, I'm just tired. Like, so, fatigue is a whole separate entity. And you might also be coping with extra articular symptoms, non-joint symptoms, things like inflammation in your heart, eyes, lungs, or medication side effects. So there's a lot. So just know if you're having a hard time, you're not alone, and these are just some things that when I asked this question around this time last year, I said, what are the most stressful things for you about living with rheumatoid arthritis or another rheumatic disease? This is what people said. It's the it's the social effects, people not understanding, or people thinking they understand and they actually don't. Like, oh, my knee hurts too. Like, I'm trying to relate to you, but you're like, that's not the same as my immune system attacking my knee and the rest of my body. And so it can feel invalidating. Sorry, we just moved and I have like literally paper blinds. So because we're waiting for the real blinds to come. So I'm like, there's like light coming on my face. And then there's also knowing, how to pay attention to your own needs while also doing your other roles in your life, right? So you might be a mom or, a coworker, and you might be like, I was used to kind of burning the candle at both ends and not having to think about fatigue or anything like that until I got rheumatoid arthritis. So this literally could have been written by me. This was not written by me, but these are comments from Instagram, but being a high energy person, and it's hard not to be able to do what you used to be able to do. So just know that I feel like I'm kind of like, it feels like I'm kind of like Chicken Little, like the sky is falling, but just know that it is a problem that's been identified, like that patients with rheumatic diseases are not getting adequate support. And this is from the European League Against Rheumatism. They made a recommendation for patient education for people with inflammatory arthritis. And these are based on like scientific, qualitative studies that are like, hey, how are you feeling about getting diagnosed and then told like, come back in 3 months and given like a 20-minute appointment? They're like, surprisingly, not surprisingly, they're like, I haven't gotten enough information and support. And I thought this was kind of poetic. They want to be enabled to use their own resources and re-engage in previously abandoned activities. And that's like a very actual like occupational therapy adjacent kind of goal. So yeah, and I'm sorry, yeah, Heidi, same, and Natalie, yeah. And I mean, people still say like, oh, you're so energetic, but I'm like, you only see me when I'm like, I plan my day around doing these things like videos and stuff. So I love taking naps and I get tired all the time, so anyway, we all deserve better. That's why I created what I did. So it's not to oversimplify it, but it depending on what your needs are right now, it is, for me and most people who've done the program, it is definitely easier to do it in a community atmosphere and with like a kind of a supportive facilitator rather than trying to do it on your own. And I will say, just real quick, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, so I'm an occupational therapist, but this group is not group occupational therapy. Like there is a way to do group therapy that is actually covered by insurance and everything. This isn't that. And so I just want to be clear on that. But, I believe that the best long-term solution is to make programs like I have done, but make them part of the standard of care in every single clinic, and that this is being done very rarely. There's one hospital in New York that does this, Hospital for Special Surgery, but it's not through insurance, it's through a special grant. So this, like, to me, like, I'm doing this group program now because it's like the quickest, fastest thing I can do. But I really do think that we shouldn't have to rely on like individuals who get excited about this to make programs. Like every patient should be given as part of their normal standard care. Like I'll say, when I got diagnosed with gestational diabetes, I got immediately set up with weekly appointments with a diabetes educator. Like, why aren't there arthritis educators? Like I'm making myself an arthritis educator, but it should be like a official thing. Like there needs to be more than like a couple of us out there. So, okay. So Room to Thrive. I definitely want to make sure I leave time for your questions and answers, but the goal of the program is to basically do two things: giving you the tools to manage your symptoms and learn how to cope with the stressors. Because unfortunately, I can't make your stressors go away. Like life is stressful, period. And then life with rheumatoid arthritis is stressful. So we have to learn how to cope, and we have to learn how to solve what I call like the solvable problems. Like sometimes you have morning stiffness and that's a solvable problem because you can like put a heat pack on, but other times we come up against unsolvable problems that are just persisting and we have to cope with them. So those are like, that's like the teaching element. And then the second element of it is the community to support you while you're learning that, and to also just support whatever is going on with your initial adjustment or your adjustment to what's going on currently, and kind of get you unstuck and out of overwhelm and feel more empowered. Like you're in charge, of your healthcare journey to a certain extent. So, I mean, like, again, there's still a lot of forces that we have to contend with, but so each meeting, I'm trying to like simplify because it's like we really do just have 2 sections of each meeting. There's a lecture on the topic of the week, and then there's a support group session that's more, usually starts off about the topic of the week, because that's what's just like fresh on our minds. But then it's like someone will say, oh, like I'm looking at getting a new primary care doctor. Like, what do you think? Or like someone's just talking about like maybe a family member who's not understanding them. We kind of have some productive problem solving. And so I created this Thrive framework, which really just encompasses all the things that I think in my patient experience and also occupational therapy perspective, like give people the best chance at having a full and meaningful life. Oh, the chat went away again. Sorry, guys. Or sorry, everyone. So, not just, okay, but yes, we have to start with like tools for pain and fatigue, because that's usually like the most pressing kind of concern people have in the beginning. And then we talk about healthy habits. That's things like lifestyle factors like sleep, exercise, nutrition, and a little bit of stress management. But then we go more into stress management in the I section. And we're going to talk a little bit more of this. We talk about ways to manage relationships. And that's when we literally practice scripts of like how to tell a family or a friend that like you have this condition, or how to respond when people are like, you don't look sick. And then, inner world, that's all about mental health. And I'm really a big fan of acceptance and commitment therapy. And then there's valued activities and hobbies. We literally have a time when people have a show and tell, where they say, these are the things I can still do. And like focusing on like, we can problem solve if there's things that you can't do anymore because of your RA, like how can we problem solve that? But we also spend time focusing on what can I still do? I could take photos. Maybe if I can't do drawing, I can maybe do photography, trying to kind of feel empowered in that sense. And then we have time for learning how to be the CEO of your care team, which is under the umbrella of like executive functions. So that's things like symptom tracking and, organizing your medical records and learning how to advocate for yourself, which that's still hard for me. Like I have the biggest like people pleaser gene. I'm always like, oh, sorry. Like I will like apologize every doctor's appointment I go to. I'm like, I'm sorry. And they're like, you're literally here like for us to help you. Like you don't have to say sorry, but like, it's just, we all work on things, we're all a work in progress. So, and then the second half of the meeting is again, that more traditional group support or support group. And it's really come to my attention recently that a lot of people have different connotations around like the phrase support group. So I'm going to try to like clarify that to you. So again, and I do provide citations for all of like the specific things that I recommend. And I will say a lot of there's gray areas, so I'll say like, this said this said that. And like, but if you're kind of like, well, what about this? I could be like, yeah, that's totally wackadoodle, or like, like, or maybe, maybe it'll come up, but right now, like this would be, if you only have so many units of energy per day, you want to figure out like where to put your energy, to what's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So I try to help you kind of figure that out. And I give you the citations. That's just what I want you to know. So this is just I need to increase this font. Sorry. But so for example, like in April, we have a welcome meeting and we talk about 1 week, the topic is for the lecture is like pain tools. Another one's fatigue. And then the other one is just problem solving. And does that make sense? So it's kind of like a little lecture like I'm giving you now, but with time for questions and answers. And then there's habits, nutrition, exercise. And sometimes I'm usually the one giving all the talks, but sometimes I'll bring in like a guest speaker, especially nutrition. And I bring in Jennifer, who has a master's in as a registered dietitian, because again, that is such a hot topic. So it's really comprehensive. It's really designed to, get you to go from like, to, okay, I can do this by the end, in 6 months. So for those of you who just wanted in like kind of a linear format here, we have 3 to 4 calls each month. And the focus again is we try to find this balance. We have like the things that we can control, and then we have the things we definitely can't control. And then there's like this gray area of like things we're not sure whether we can control. And we try to figure out maximizing what we can do, the things we can control about our condition or about what's stressing us out. And then, coping with the things that are out of our control. And that's during the education talks and also the support group. And there also is basically like a bonus is the private online community that's on Facebook. So I know some people love Facebook, some people hate Facebook. It's a private Facebook group, and it's just a chance for people to continue connecting. So there's definitely, there's a bunch of testimonials. You can see them on the website. I'll link the website. And so great question, Heidi. Is the part of the support group recorded? Okay. So initially, when I first started it, I only recorded the lecture because I just assumed people wouldn't want to open up in the support group section when it was recorded. But then people requested that it be recorded because they felt like if they had to miss a week, they would miss out on seeing what other people are going through and like figuring out, like, learning from other people's ups and downs. So what we ended up doing, which I think is actually kind of a great compromise, is as a default, everything's recorded. But at any point, like I said at the beginning of this meeting today, if at any point anyone likes to speak off the record, I will literally just hit pause on the recording. And so if they're like, everyone is signs an agreement to keep everything confidential. But as some of you may know, in the digital world, like there are no guarantees of complete confidentiality. Oops. So let me go back. Sorry, I keep clicking the wrong things. I swear I'm technologically literate. So I have to be careful not to say, like, I literally, once I upload the recording to our portal on Thinkific, like I can't control whether or not all the members of the group keep it confidential, but there have been no issues so far in the 2 years I've been doing it. And if there were anyone that would not keep it confidential, there's terms and conditions for being part of the group, and they would definitely be removed from the group. So I hope that makes sense. That's like, you anticipated one of my FAQs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
because I was thinking about that, because you said that before the other members, but what I was thinking, like, what if the members of the new group don't want that part recorded? Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah, that's
if that could happen. I don't know. Since now I know everything is technology now and all of that, but then so you recorded everything and that stays there just for the people that are in that particular group to see. It's not that other people can access to that.
It's just for the people who are currently signed up. Yeah. So, and it's a cohort program, meaning like everyone starts in April and then they'll quote unquote graduate in September.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new group people will start in October and graduate. Like the people that I'm currently supporting are graduating in March. And we actually it's not a secret on purpose, but we have one of the first groups that I did, they wanted to keep connecting, but just have the support group, not the lectures, just
Mm-hmm.
open-ended support. So I do have it's called like Thrive Graduates for anyone who's completed the 6 months that wants to continue getting support. So it's technically, I've run 2 groups, but they have different portals in Thinkific. Okay. So yeah. But I think I would have to basically, at this point for this current group, the default is to record them because there's already people signed up and I've already said that I record,
Okay.
so I have to be like consistent with what I've said. But the caveat of recording is that anyone can always choose to speak. So if the whole group doesn't want to speak on the record, I guess then no one's going to complain. They say, oh, just stop the recording. Yeah. And it does change depending on the vibe of the people in the group. And sometimes it's more of like an analytical group where everyone has a lot of detailed questions. Other times it's more like big picture group who's just like, okay, I get it. Let's just chat about random stuff. Does that make sense?
I'm assuming that probably with what you said, like if it's the same people throughout the 6 months and people are consistently coming, I know after the group cohesiveness, if that's the right word, sorry, I'm Hispanic.
Oh yeah, it's okay.
If that's the right way of pronouncing it, I'm hoping that no one is gonna be like, no, I don't want to sound like negative. It's not that. It's like it's just like questions that I'm just thinking about. That's why I'm anxious, probably.
No. So was there a second? I'm sorry. Did you have a second question, or you're?
No, that's what what I'm thinking. No, like probably as people start feeling more like they belong to the group and they feel more comfortable, I'm assuming that people, okay, whatever stays here, whatever we talk about stays here, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No.
No, that's okay. I see what you're saying now. Sorry, I was like, wait, I didn't want to make sure I didn't like gloss over. Yeah. That actually is true. In the beginning, people sometimes are intimidated or they don't feel comfortable sharing, or they just are like, let me just kind of sit back and figure out what this is. Like it's funny because I'm definitely like a person who feels comfortable in online groups, but and a lot of people over the last 2 years have gotten more comfortable being online, but it does take time. I used to actually, believe it or not, I used to do this in 8 weeks and it was just too short. It felt like we were just starting to gel. Oh yes, thank you, Natalie. I'm sorry. Yes, you can watch the rest of the recording, and then any other questions, let me know. So yeah, these are just some of the things people have said. And like, I don't know if any of you guys have read Tina Fey's memoir, but one of my favorite things is that she puts the negative reviews on the back in addition to the positive reviews. And like one of the negative reviews is like from her dad. So I'm like, I do try to be objective. Like these are the ones that kind of represent what people say about it. Like, I do think the people who've self-selected into Room to Thrive are the right people. So that I really haven't gotten any like super negative one so far. There was one person who decided it wasn't right for them after the first month because they thought it was going to be just based on the information. They just didn't really want the support group, and they just didn't feel like they wanted to take the time to do it at that time, so there's that. But there hasn't been anyone who's like consistently come and participated and then been like, this wasn't helpful. I will tell you if there is somebody who does, because I actually only want people to do it who are going to have a positive experience, So, this Suzanne said, basically she liked the tools and tips and the close community atmosphere. So that was good. And then I thought this is a great one from Erin, and again, these are shared with permission. Hesitant to join the group because she already had a good grasp on caring, but she ended up really liking the sense of community. And I will say, I really try to be very inclusive to different treatment choices. Like, cause I'm very much like, I'm open about how my choices have worked, like with taking Western medicine. And there are a lot of like influencer people in the autoimmune community who are very much like natural methods only. And like, I'm like, look, this is what worked for me. And like, this is what the evidence says, like scientifically, like ethically, I have to tell you that. But like, if you're choosing to do things a different way, like your choice is still, something that you deserve support and empowerment. However, you're trying to manage your condition, as long as you're not like telling everyone else that how you're doing it is how they should do it, So yes, so there's that. And then this is anonymous, but she felt alone, and she has ankylosing spondylitis. It's a good little mix. It's mostly rheumatoid arthritis, but we do have people with psoriatic and ankylosing, or people whose diagnosis have changed. One person was eventually diagnosed with AS and then got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She was like, oh, I actually have rheumatoid. And then, yeah. So Marion, you've already been validated. You've been struggling with fatigue, and your doctor keeps trying to say it's something other than RA. Okay. But you didn't have fatigue the other 20. That's really interesting. Yeah.
No, I was able to have a full-time job. Maybe I ignored the fatigue, but my main symptoms were the pain, swelling joints when I overdid it. Now I don't have any of those. Now I don't have that as much. It's mainly the fatigue that's just, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Was there anything that happened around the 6 months? Like a
No,
virus? Oh, wow. Okay.
no. I mean, she prescribed Cymbalta. She was saying it's osteoarthritis. She prescribed Cymbalta for the pain, but my pain was muscular. Then she was kind of saying maybe it's fibro. We don't know. And I just honestly, maybe it's just my disease has evolved, but it's a pretty exhausting kind of fatigue that, I felt. So, but thank you. Cause, honestly, I've had it for 20 years. And when I thought of RA, I haven't, fatigue isn't one of them. Fatigue is one when you overdo it, but not consistently.
Yeah. And I have to say, and I say this in the program, that like we don't even have that great of tools for pain, but there's a lot more research on pain that is than fatigue. Like fatigue seems like the forgotten little sister of rheumatoid arthritis, and I show some of the latest research, and it basically shows fatigue is just very multifactorial. It is complexly affected by it is affected by sleep. It's not the same as sleepiness, but it's affected by sleep, overall inflammation levels, your mental state, stress management, your physical activity levels. And it's like by the book, everyone used to think the root cause of everything is inflammation from rheumatoid arthritis. Causes inflammation, and inflammation doesn't like to stay in one place. So it travels to the brain, it travels to the heart, it travels everywhere. And there is evidence that like neuroinflammation, like neurological brain inflammation, is related to fatigue. But weirdly enough, there's a lot of people with rheumatoid arthritis, and this is like documented, that their inflammation markers get all the way better, like their blood work and even physical exam. And then they're like, but I'm still really fatigued. Like, so by the book, if inflammation was the only part of the picture, then they shouldn't be fatigued anymore. Like pain and fatigue, like I joke, are like pain and fatigue are like in that old arcade game whack-a-mole, where it's like moles come up and you have to whack them. Like sometimes they come up at the same time. And for some people, they very consistently both go together. For me, they're kind of separate. Like I don't know, maybe 40% of the time they come together, and 60% of the time they're kind of random. So yeah, I think that there's just the best tools for fatigue are like preventative and then compensatory. So like things like structuring your day so that you kind of spread out your energy through like energy conservation techniques. And then compensatory are like, okay, compensating for existing fatigue. But in terms of like compensating, meaning you're not making this fatigue any better, but you're able to function with it. But we don't have great, what's called like remedial techniques for fatigue. Weirdly enough, one of the strongest things I'll give to tell you that does not make, again, any sense to some degree is exercise. So exercise leads to better fatigue and better sleep quality, and according to a lot of scientific research. So take with that what you will, but it takes people a while to usually figure out, like the best exercise. Usually like, not overexertion, like getting my heart rate over like 160 is like a pretty predictable fatigue trigger for me. Oh yeah, that's another preventative thing, is finding your triggers, like sunlight, heat, overexertion, underexertion. But I would also say, I'm sure you've already thought of this, Marion, but it's always helpful to kind of get medically evaluated for any other underlying factors like anemia or thyroid issues or endocrine issues that could be causing it as well. And lastly, I will say a little insider tip. Some rheumatologists will prescribe stimulant ADHD medicine for fatigue. I don't know if that's legal or not, but they do it, and and it works. So take with that what you will. I don't know if that's like FDA approved or whatnot, but I just want to make sure I give you a couple of these kind of like nuts and bolts so before we open up for more questions. We're doing well with time management though. So the meetings, this is potentially unnecessarily complicated, but I schedule the meetings in April for Thursday afternoon / evening, depending on your time zone. So like that's around the time this info session was. And then Saturdays at like 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, because historically those have always been the times that work for a lot of people in the groups. And then for the rest of the time, I send out a poll in early April to determine the rest of the time. And usually I'll still try to make sure to alternate between a Saturday and a weekday, just because there's people with different work schedules and availability. And the only thing that changes is sometimes, like right now, the group actually has a lot more people from Europe than usual. So we have like a couple meetings that are in the morning versus like the afternoon. But I try to do the best I can to make it so that the most people can come. And then, okay, so the cost, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, you have to look at my website to figure it out. So it's $57 a month for 6 months, or $292, $50 off for paying the 6 months up front. And I always want to make sure I say, I do offer need-based discounts. So you don't have to like prove it to me. I just take people's, honor. I take you at your word. And so it's kind of a pay what you can. Just send me an email and I'll explain to you how that works. And then just like kind of making sure I address some of the concerns people have about like support groups. So aren't they just people being complaining and just like full of people crying and having terrible stories? And I will say support group is like a very vague term. And the way I like to think about it is it's a vehicle. It's like a TV is a vehicle, right? For you to watch something. You could be watching a scary horror movie and like want to run away, or you could watch like Mr. Rogers and feel really happy. Like a support group completely differs depending on the purpose of it and who's facilitating it and how. And so, yes, I'm a patient too. So I have seen the Facebook groups that are kind of like quote unquote support groups that are just a lot of, again, I'm not a big fan of like quote unquote positive thinking as like a way to like shame people for feeling negative feelings. Like negative feelings are part of life. But in our group, I think the fact that we start each meeting with those practical tips and tricks and like really focus, what can we do? How can we manage our quality of life? And that kind of starts it off on an empowering note. And then we do have time in the support section to validate the suffering or the things that we can't control. Like COVID, I'm not going to lie, has been a huge stress for a lot of people. We just spend time talking about now that mask mandates are lifted, it's causing more stress and like frustration. And people vent about like, why can't my family just wear a mask or something, and so, I definitely offer a lot of space for people to process like those difficult emotions too. So it's a mix. It's a mixture of kind of celebrating the positive and coping with the negative. And then I have to remember, because I'm so extroverted, some people don't like to talk. It's like, I can't understand it. No, but so you don't have to talk. You don't have to share anything. There are definitely people who just come every single week and just love just being part of the group, or they'll do the little like hearts and celebrations, the emojis. We do the emojis a lot, but they just don't feel compelled to share, and that's fine. And then yes, since it's recording, you can speak off the record. And then again, I really want to make sure that people who get in the group are a good fit, because I want you to be successful and I want you to like spend your time and money the way that is going to be helpful for you. So it is not a fit for you if your goal is to cure your condition, or like heal it or make everything go away and like make you not have RA anymore. I don't really believe there's like a way to do that. There are people who believe that they have, and there's a lot of complicated factors around it. And I'm the first to admit that like lack of evidence isn't evidence of a lack, but that's not my zone of genius and it's not my interest area. I'm really, really interested in like helping you figure out how to cope and function in your life in the here and now. My program is actually very mindfulness based. I didn't even really say the word mindfulness because that's like kind of a buzzword that people get confused by. But it's like, okay, right now, today, this is what we can do. So if you're interested in things like Ayurvedic medicine or like a nutrition intensive program that's like 12 weeks just about nutrition, like deep dive, I have, sources that I think are good for those. So just let me know. But that's not what I do. In medical lingo, what I'm doing is called like self-management program. It's like the skills patients need to kind of manage the day-to-day of your condition. So it's really broad. Like believe it or not, it's a lot. We go into a lot, but it's not, again, like a deep dive into nutrition or deep dive into exercise. It's meant to give you, I think of it as like your orientation manual, like when you start a new job, like having RA is like a job. And like, basically you've been given no orientation manual. So I'm like the orientation manual. And it's not a good fit for you if you're at a place, which is, again, we've all probably been there, where you just feel like nothing's going to work. Nothing's going to work. I'm not going to ever feel any relief, and nothing I do, no just, if you just kind of are in that space of like, nothing's going to work and nothing's going to help, this isn't going to help you, because if you believe nothing's going to help, this will be part of the nothing that doesn't help. So, if you, and that's, I would say, a situation where a one-on-one therapy would probably be more important, because there's a lot of things that can lead people to feeling that way. And again, I totally understand if that's where you're at. So, and in additional, yeah, if you're kind of like, I don't know, I don't really want to be in a group, then this is don't be in a group. So I do have a self-paced, the online course, Rheumatoid Arthritis Roadmap, is basically just a pre-recorded version. It isn't technically, but of what we talk about in the little lectures. It is pre-recorded, but I recorded it separately from the Room to Thrive group. And then how do I know if it's a good fit? Again, it's kind of like what I said in the beginning, if you have a rheumatic disease and you want to learn how to manage it through lifestyle choices like mindfulness or movement or sleep. Everyone's always talking about diet and exercise, but my soapbox is like sleep. Sleep is so crucial. So sleep correlates to inflammation and fatigue, and then learning coping tools. If you feel alone and you want to connect with others, you want to be the CEO of your care team. That's kind of our goal with the last month. So that was fresh on my mind, and feel more empowered in your interactions with medical providers. So, this is my little pitch. I'm not very like salesy or whatnot. I try not to be, but I will say, like, a lot of the stuff you could put this all together on your own. You could kind of read everything and try to make sense of it, but it does cost a lot of time, which, time is money. And then it costs a lot of mental energy, and it's stressful, and it's not as much fun for me. So you can go to this website to sign up for it. And people ask, I forgot to anticipate the question of how many people are in the group. So right now it's been like, the most it's been officially enrolled is like 22 to 25, but usually in the actual meetings, it's more like 9 to 12 because of just schedules and stuff. Sometimes it's like 18. And I do want to I like to keep it intimate. Like, some people would say intimate groups would be like 5, but to me, it's like what we have right now is an intimate group. But I think I will break it up if it is getting too unmanageable. But right now, it's still been able to feel intimate with like even up to 20 people, because actually the more having a diverse group is good, because we can have people like me who've had it for 2 decades. We have people who are newly diagnosed, and we have people who, have different skill sets. Like, it really helps when we talk about like work, life, and accommodations. And there's one girl in the group who's like a lawyer, and she's like, oh, here's a tip for like asking for accommodations, so it's actually nice to have a big group too. So, oh my God, sorry. I did a photo shoot. I got excited about it. So now it's time for questions, but these are how you can get in touch with me too. But I'm going to stop my share. And then I'll put the link if you are, I think I said this very, very quickly earlier, but it is a cohort group, which means you have to sign up by March 31st, because everyone starts all at once. And then I offer it again in September. So I'm not running like concurrent, like it's twice a year that I do a big push to have to start it. And that's just kind of what works for my workflow. So okay, deep breath. Okay. Any questions?
So even I live in Southern California.
Okay. Yep.
And I work from Monday through Thursday from 1 to 6. So obviously there is a day, actually I'm working. I'm on my personal laptop and I'm working on a PowerPoint for work right
Good
now.
multitasking.
Yes, no. But that means that since you guys will do a weekday, so there will be those days that I can't come to the meeting.
Yeah, this is why I think there's an argument for me to just set it ahead of time, but that's what's typically been done, that way I alternate between like a Saturday and then a Thursday or Friday. So if there's a lot of
Friday, yes, I can, depending
Yeah.
on the time, because then Friday I have my infusions now.
Oh
but
yeah.
in the morning.
You could
when
do
I-
it during your infusion.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I don't know how like I didn't know till I went to grad school in California how different infusion clinics were. Like the one in Seattle where I live is like really nice and each person gets their own little private area.
Right.
The one that's in California is like, oh my God, we're in like a small room with like, well, this is before COVID, but like all these people like close together, like I couldn't have done the meeting there. But yeah, like I mean, ideally I would hope that like if other people had a Friday as a day that worked for them, then that weekday one could be Friday. But for April at least that's Thursday, Saturday for April. And then I just can't really unfortunately tell you. I make it based on what's the best time for everyone's schedules,
Mhm.
you know. So if Saturdays always, but I almost always do alternate with a Saturday. So if Saturdays do work for you, then you'd be able to make every
Yes,
other
Thursdays, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
also of the time difference and all.
one. Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Or if because you have at 6, yeah, that's a little too late. As I was gonna say,
Mhm.
I can make the meeting start at like 5 or 5:30, but yeah, because then the people on the East Coast would be like, oh, it's too late, you know.
Exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, unless I can try to work with my, I don't know, depending.
I mean, I think like long term, I would love to make like there be like a Saturday morning group where everyone like every week we meet Saturday morning and that's like the time, or like there's the Friday, afternoon one. But right now it's not big enough. Like there's not enough people to kind of divide it like that. So that's the best I can say is that it'll probably alternate between a Saturday and a weekday. And that the Saturday will be probably 9 or 9:30 Pacific time.
No, I don't mind waking up early. I don't mind.
I know. Yeah, that's like from me having a small child when I was starting this. I was like, oh, that's not early. 9 o'clock is like, oh, I've been awake for 3 hours. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really hydrating today. And any other, I'm here for questions about the program or anything else. I just like to give my soapboxes. You can put them in the chat too. Okay, well, I'm glad I didn't go slower or faster. I mean, sometimes I go faster because I'm like, oh, I want to leave room. But anything else? Oh, what did I not say? Oh yeah, the group of people. And then, I'm going to have just some of you listen to the Arthritis Life podcast. I'm not sure if all of you've heard of it, but that's my little podcast. And I am going to share a couple this month, not tomorrow, but the next 2 are going to have like people who have done, Room to Thrive. And I'll put a couple of things and other like resources in the chat, but I know it feels a little more like understandable. You can kind of wrap your head around it when you see actual like people who've been through it. So here's one of them in Instagram. Are you all on Instagram? How did you find out about this, by the way? Is it Instagram?
I'm
I know
on
Heidi.
Instagram, but I'm incognito on Instagram.
Oh, that's fun.
Only because of what I did in my professional life. I don't actually want to be found on Instagram.
No, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm not like working clinically right now, so
Exactly.
it's easier for me to just say what
Clinically, I
want.
don't want to be found.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I'm not on Facebook, so I wouldn't be able to join the private Facebook group of everyone afterwards. Will there be an opportunity for us to connect any other way as a group?
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, again, I'm always kind of adding things and changing things. Right now, that's mainly it, but you could make an incognito Facebook account.
Well, no, it's
I
really
know.
hard to do that. It's actually really hard to do that.
Facebook
They make
is-
it incredible. It was so difficult to make an incognito Instagram. What I had to go through was really, really tough.
Oh,
It was
That's-
really tough.
wackadoo.
I'll tell you this, but I'm the hands. I'm the hands with the gloves.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was really difficult to even just do the Instagram. I had to jump through so many hoops in order to do that. And I
Oh.
actually did that just so I could follow you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm honored. Wow. Wow.
So
Yeah. There's an app I just started using for a different thing I'm part of called Vox, where it's like a there people can like leave little voice messages for each other. It's basically just like a little texting and voice message app, which I've thought about using, but right now it's like right now I'm at like the max of what I can manage, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if we think
Yeah,
of
yeah.
something that's like not too intensive, or maybe like a WhatsApp, or do you use any like chatting groups or anything like that, or chatting? Okay. Yeah, there is like a community part on Thinkific, but I'm just realistically don't think most people are going to use it. The reason that I did it on Facebook is because people are already there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, but yeah, that's something I would be interested in looking into, because there are a handful of people who don't want to, be on Facebook. But
Yeah.
after the 6 months, you can join the graduates group, which is just we
Oh,
meet. Yeah,
okay.
sorry if I didn't explain that. I just like dumped all this
No,
information.
you did say that. I just didn't, I thought it was on Facebook.
Oh, no. Sorry. The graduates group is similar, where we meet 3 or 4 times a month and we just have an hour of support, like so
Oh,
it's the same amount of like it's the same structure, and
okay.
it's just but sorry, it's not the same structure because there's no lecture, but it's the same kind of like meetings. So you would
Got it.
yeah, and you would have the access to the recordings on Thinkific as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's right now $37 a month, because it is kind of,
Okay.
I want it for some people it's a little more affordable, and it's just because so and some people, I will say also, some people repeat the program, so they decide that they're like, okay, this was a lot of information, so I want to I want the lectures again, I want to be able to ask more questions and get into the details, and then they join the graduates after that. But
Got it. Okay, thank you.
yeah. And we do have fun too, like we talked, and that's even in the regular, 6-month Room to Thrive program. I try to balance, fun in terms of like the show and tell. And like, we've had like dance parties before and stuff. And then also the serious parts, so as again, I know that was another one of those myths about support groups, is that they're all just like very serious, and we try to like strike a good tone, or good balance between, being able to still laugh and
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Oh, I'm so glad you all came. There was like this moment in the beginning where no one was here yet. And I was like, oh, no one's coming. I meant to email you before, Jan, to be like, oh, you don't have to still come if don't feel pressure to come since you already decided. But yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm kind of immersed already, so it's good.
I know, it's great. Yeah. I was like it's funny because this time of kind of making the program available is going a lot better than the last couple of times. I was following this advice of like a business guru who was like, you need to only make your product available for like 4 days, because then people will like have that pressure to buy it. And I just never felt good about that. And I was like, but I'm like, oh, this is the experts, I'm going to try it their way. And I'm just like, this is so much better to make it pre-order, and also like give people breathing room and time to like think about it and figure out, is it right? I'm not trying to like obviously like become a millionaire doing this. I'm just trying to like,
No, you're doing a good job.
Make it sustainable. I do want this to be sustainable, and I will say, so sometimes people ask me, why isn't Arthritis Life a nonprofit? Like, why is this not free? And that's a complicated thing. I did think about making it a nonprofit, and I'm on the board of 2 nonprofits. Like, I understand how they work, and maybe that's why I didn't, because everyone thinks, oh, if you have a nonprofit, it's so easy. You just write grants and get money and do whatever. No. And so the first thing that gets cut in a lot of disease specific nonprofits is support groups. And like, I will give credit to the Arthritis Foundation. They do have a monthly support group that is run by local trained peer facilitators. It's not the same in terms of an intensive like learning and support program and like a progressive program. Like it's like kind of different topics each time. And I've gone to the ones in Seattle, they're great, but like this is really a intensive, robust program. And like no one basically gives this for free. So yeah.
I just left the board of a nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
And, I know.
Well, and also like nonprofit doesn't mean that like, you know, no one has like evil motivations. I mean, there's so many, most hospitals are nonprofits, and
Right.
there's, you know, their CEOs and their managers are getting millions of dollars
Yeah.
and like cutting corners on patient care. So, you know, it's very complex, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's, and unfortunately a lot of nonprofits around arthritis have had a lot of like budget cuts in the last, you know, couple of years. And it's very hard to make a nonprofit sustainable. So this is just more like, instead of being like, spend all this time getting funding from other people to give you the money to do the program, it's like, how about the people who actually benefit from the program have to pay, you know, a small fee, not like a crazy fee. Hopefully to me, it's not too, it's fair. And then, for those who are experiencing financial hardship, I do offer like the need-based discount. Anyway, sorry. Now I'm sounding like I'm defensive. I'm just like,
No,
I've thought about
I
this a
think
lot.
it's very fair. I think
Okay.
it's very
Thank you.
fair.
Thank you, Jan. It's okay, Heidi and Marion, if you disagree. So I thought about this a lot, but it's just, you know, and the Arthritis Foundation actually used to offer a more rigorous sequential self-management program that was developed by like the Center for Self-Management at Stanford University, and they cut it. Like they cut it because they couldn't afford it. And a lot of people who want to donate to nonprofits, they want the money to go to funding a cure and find research and finding a cure. And I want that too. There needs to be people who fund, you know, finding a cure for arthritis. So that's, you know, that's why it's not a nonprofit, but yeah. Oh, the other question, shoot, I flitted out of my head. I had a question. I'm like, oh, I have frequently asked questions on the website, on the, you know, the master like information page. So let me go to my own FAQ section, because I know it's a lot of information. Can I purchase it at any time, or does registration close? I already covered that. It does apply to other conditions other than rheumatoid arthritis. Most of the research that I'm citing throughout it is on rheumatoid arthritis specifically. And we do focus a lot on like the hands or the wrists as like the areas of concern, which I know if you have like axial spondyloarthritis or something, then you're maybe having more back pain, but I'm always, you know, happy to provide more. And then, is it relevant even if you've had the disease for many years? Yeah, I mean, depending on the patient, but I've had people who've had it for, you know, 15 years who basically, because no one ever teaches anyone this, they're like, yeah, you know, this is good. This is helpful. And that's the teaching part. And then the support group part is, yeah, people do get really close to me. It's gotten to the point where I'm almost like, I feel like nervous to offer it again, because I'm like, oh no, like is this group going to gel as well as the last one, you know? But so far everyone seems really nice who's joined. So yay. Well, it's 5 o'clock in Seattle-ish area where I live. So I have time for one more question if anyone has one that they haven't asked yet. How's the PowerPoint, Heidi?
It's going good.
You're like me and my meetings like last week where I was working on PowerPoint. It's funny. Yeah. Formatting PowerPoints is like fun, is like a fun little task.
Yeah. So the group starts on April.
Yeah. April 2nd, that's Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday. That's what I was going to ask. At least am I going to be on the first week?
Yes, actually, yeah.
I would feel like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I will find my way. I don't know how.
Yeah.
April 2nd, yay.
Yay. I know. I'm excited. I really am. And yeah. And I happen to be taking a vacation the second full week of April. So it'll be like, we'll meet on the Saturday the 2nd, and then Thursday the 7th, and then no meeting the following week, and then the meeting the next. Yeah. It's a little bit different. I do try to normally alternate it, but it is what it is. And a lot of people have spring break. People who have kids have kind of like a spring break in the middle of April. So, but anyway, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Marion, I hope your appointment tomorrow goes really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all the different things that could be, make sure to say, is there anything else that could be causing this that you can test for, you know?
Yeah, thank you. That's really great information because I've been, last 6 months I've been, is it me? What's going on? What's
No,
going on? Yeah.
no, you know your body by now, you know, after
Yes.
having it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this is such the way it hit is such a new symptom. So yeah. But I appreciate all of the information because this really helps going into the appointment too.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, fingers gently, I would say fingers gently crossed.
Yes.
Don't cross them, should say we'll hurt ourselves. Okay. Well, bye-bye for now. Oh, I'll send
Bye.
you all a recording.
Thank you.
That's what I meant to
Okay,
say. Yeah, I'll
thank
send you a
you.
Awesome.
recording. Okay,
All right, good night.
bye.
Bye.
Thanks.